Hey guys, well, it's been a minute. So I wanted to talk about Ken Klippenstein. He's on Substack. He used to be a TYT contributor, or he used to work for TYT, and now he is on his own, or he has been for a while now. He published the JD Vance dossier. So if you're not familiar, he published it on the 26th of September. Now, I'm not going to necessarily talk about what was in the dossier because that's not the point of this video. This video is going to go down the rabbit hole of what happened to Ken after he published this article. And then he also published a link to the dossier on Twitter, which ultimately got him banned. So like I said, on the 26th, he published the dossier, and on September 26th, he created another article on Substack, and it was entitled, "Twitter Banned Me. I was banned after publishing the JD Vance dossier." The principle involved here is complex. I do not believe this is the job of the news media to alter documents as if it's a de facto government deciding what the public should and shouldn't know. Yes, I know that it's general practice to delete private information from leaks and classified documents, but in this case, not only is Vance an elected official and vice president candidate, but the information is readily available by for anyone to buy. So the document itself describes its methods of acquiring the so-called private information about Vance. We undertook an examination of already available and relevant electronic online records, several hundred Nexus and news articles, dozens of active and archived web pages, and several dozen public records from Nexus and the resources of various federal, state, and municipal government offices. In other words, everything was out there, either readily or for purchase. So you could find some of this information for free, or you could purchase information which would give you this information. So anyway, because that's why he was being banned from Twitter, was because they cited private information was accessible, right? And it wasn't even on Twitter itself. It was a link to the dossier from Twitter, I believe, was the problem. Then on September 27th, the next day, 2024, he wrote a new Substack article, and it says, "My Twitter ban is political. I redacted the JD Vance dossier. Surprise, I'm still banned." So he went in there and he redacted it. So it's been widely reported that my suspension from X, Twitter, is only temporary. Those reports are false. My ban from X, the company says, is permanent. The confusion arises from the media's reliance on the rare statements issued yesterday by X announcing my temporary suspension. Remarks X spokesperson has reiterated in discussion with the media. X's wordplay has insulated the company from backlash, so it's not hard to imagine why they're doing it. But X informed me privately that I was permanently banned from the platform, as you can see below, and then he goes into talking about it. So, then, on the 29th of September of 2024, he writes a new article on Substack, and it's called "The Empire Strikes Back," which I got a kick out of. So if you're a Star Wars fan, you might get a kick out of that. It says, "The JD Vance dossier I reported is now blocked by Meta and even Google." So the largest internet companies, Meta, Facebook, and Google, also called Alphabet, swiftly censored the JD Vance research dossier that I published this week following X's move to ban me and stop the circulation of the Trump campaign document. The platform said that the alleged Iranian original of the dossier, which no one is calling fake or altered, necessitated removing any links to the document. These are very same companies had earlier promised not to remove content for political reasons. Even Google Drive restricts users from sharing the dossier. So I think that's a very important point that he's making, because remember in the 2016 election, and Hillary Clinton had, those emails that got acquired, was hacked, and they were WikiLeaks acquired them, and Julian Assange published them, right? And Trump asked for that. And so, but the thing is, all the news media talked about it. Like, it was a never-ending cycle of Hillary Clinton emails, right? And I'm not here to re-prosecute that whole situation. The major media had been sitting on the Vance's document for months, despite the obvious newsworthiness of the campaign document about vice president nominee. Yeah, so the fact is, when it was Hillary Clinton, the media did not sit on it. And now that it's for the Republican side, for whatever reason, the media is sitting on it. So it was newsworthy and no one touched it. So Ken Klippenstein decided to touch it and got met with some pretty ferocious censoring. Okay, so that was on the 29th. Then on October 11th, Trump campaign worked with Musk's ex to censor my reporting. And he said the Trump campaign coordinated with Elon Musk's ex, Twitter, to kill circulation of my publication of the JD Vance dossier. The New York Times reported today, simply put, excluded with political campaign to restrict the public access to information about a vice president candidate just weeks before the election. Millions of Americans like myself rely on social media platforms like X to participate in the political process, whether by active discussion or simply consuming political content. X's decision to remove my article and permanently suspend my account demonstrates the awesome power concentrated in these platforms and their billionaire owners. And yeah, I mean, Meta, they're not left-leaning. Obviously, Twitter isn't, because it was bought like the biggest right-winger out there. And the thing is, they don't care about anything. Like, I think Elon Musk might be an accelerationist. And if you know what an accelerationist is, it's the thought process that there's these 4 basically seasons of humanity, if you will, right? There's a book out there called The Fourth Turning, and I will tell you in a nutshell. In a nutshell, this is what it is. And I could probably find a graphic and put it up there. So in a nutshell is, they say there's this really awful phase, which what they're saying is we're currently in, where there's lots of war, and it happens like every 85 years, and there's this, lots of strife, lots of human suffering, and then we get to a high point. Like, people like Elon Musk are basically accelerationists, and they don't care. They don't care who it's going to hurt. They're just raging against the world, and they do not care. He's rich. He's like the richest guy in the world, like one of them, if not the richest guy. I don't know. After he lost like tens of millions of dollars off of Twitter, because he's not a good business guy. He's a lunatic. He is a straight up lunatic. He hasn't had any good ideas. He's just had money to buy up other people's good ideas. And that's it. Buy people. No. Hire people that know more than him. He is not a genius. And you can listen to him for like 5 minutes and understand he is not a genius. But people revere him as a genius because he's rich. We need to get away from that. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Back to this whole dossier thing. So, Ken Klippenstein goes through to discuss why he thinks that this is politically charged, which I agree with him. And I've already read this, of course. So then he writes on October 12th, the next day, Elon Musk accepts defeat. My Twitter ban has been reversed. Late last night, X, knee Twitter, reinstated my account after banning me on September 26th for publishing the JD Vance dossier. Elon Musk personally intervened in the name of free speech principles. According to the correspondence I've seen, Musk had previously declared me as evil before X suspended me in a move now we know was coordinated with the Trump campaign. I've asked X safety to unsuspend him, even though I think he is an awful human being. Musk told political commentator Brian Krasenstein and frequent doppelganger of mine on October 11th. Important to say, true to free speech principles. I mean, I'll give Musk a tiny bit of credit there for unbanning him for literally for freedom of speech. So good for him, because private companies don't have to comply to that. Freedom of speech is only freedom of speech from the government, not necessarily from private companies. So, but I'm glad they did that. But I think he did it because he knows he looks bad. It gets, there's more. So the last thing he has written about this is on October 14th, just a few days ago. The FBI knocked on my door. The powerful federal agency tries to edit me. So I'm going to read this entire one. It's not that long. So last Friday, a young special agent from my local FBI office arrived at my Madison, Wisconsin home to read me a statement prepared in Washington. The Bureau told me that I had been a target of a foreign influence campaign, and with regard to news article that I had written, a clear reference to my publication of the JD Vance dossier. No subpoena, no search warrant, no prior announcement, no claim of illegality. Wow. America's most powerful law enforcement agency wants me to know that it was displeased. It was delivering what many would consider a chilling message. We know where you live, we know what you've done, and we are watching. This is how out of control this disinformation and foreign influence hysteria has become. When I chose to publish the JD Vance dossier, I knew and acknowledged in the story that it had probably come from Tehran, which is in Iran, if you didn't know. This placed me at odds with the entirety of major media, which in an extraordinary act of self-censorship declined to publish the dossier. A little tongue-in-cheek there. When is the last time that many people were able to agree on anything, much less reporters, who are supposed to be the unruly bunch, right? How would this even happen? The FBI visit provides a clue. Powerful organizations like Twitter, Meta, Google, and now the FBI have appointed themselves the arbiters over the news you can consume. They decry threats, quote unquote, to democracy to the form of foreign interference, influence, disinformation, misinformation, and even conspiracies that ultimately undermines the most powerful engine of our democracy, which is freedom of speech and expression. The special agent, a blonde-haired man so young he looked like he might have tripped over his umbilical cord on the way over, which I thought I got a kick out of that, looks stumped when I asked him what the point of his visit, given that I had been careful in my article with the Vance dossier to stress that Iran had likely hacked it. He confessed that he hadn't even seen my article, asking when I had published it. About 2 weeks ago, I replied, adding, "What took you guys so long?" 2 weeks is pretty fast for the federal government, he said. The special agent flashed his badge to identify himself but would not let me photograph it. He declined to provide me with the business card. I asked if I could take a picture of the statement that he was told to read. He said no. When I pushed, the special agent said that he would ask his superiors if he could send it to my email, and which I then gave them. gave him. I then contacted the FBI's National Public Affairs Office in Washington asking about the visit and whether any other members of the news media had been contacted by the FBI. The FBI has no comment. A representative of the FBI National Press Office responded via email. Whoever wrote that email, they did not identify themselves by name. The FBI is fond of saying that it does not investigate or interfere with First Amendment protected speech, but if you look closely, there's fine print that provides a carve-out for foreign influence operations. Consider the statement used by the FBI's Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Portland Field Office, George Chamberlain. At the top of the FBI's list of core values is protection of everyone's rights under the U.S. Constitution, including the rights granted under the First Amendment. Fake news, for instance, is not necessarily illegal, and the FBI cannot initiate an investigation based on First Amendment protected speech. We will take action, though, when the activity crosses a line into criminal behavior, specifically influence operations run by foreign groups or governments can fall into that category. The frenzy over foreign influence operations is a moral panic that lacks any rational justification. There's no evidence that these operations have meaningfully influenced the election. FBI Director Christopher Wray has said that Americans can and should have confidence in our election system because none of the election interference efforts that we've seen over the cycles have put at jeopardy the integrity of the votes count in a material way. So let's walk our way through this. Suppose that Iran or Russia or China or North Korea or Cuba, all of who have been accused of electoral interference, hack something that is truly monumental. Massive corruption, evidence of criminal behavior, tax avoidance on some candidate, and the mainstream news media is supposed to refuse to publish it. But that is already the known behavior of Donald Trump. The knowing of it by the American people influenced some and means nothing to others. That's the country we live in. The news is the news, like it or not. You can't control it, nor can you control what people think. Well, you kind of can, but that's a story for a different day. The FBI is a subtle way in the mainstream news media that wants to stop that. That's the reason why the news media is one of the most despised institutions in America. It can constantly puts the thumbs on the scale of free flow of information, deciding what's news, slanting coverage, ignoring what they find objectionable or too ugly or too difficult or too boring, which is so true. They literally decide for us what we should get to know if you listen to only mainstream media, because it's whatever they think is sensational is what they're going to push out there. And if a thing is important to know but it's just kind of boring, they're not going to report on it, right? And I mean, one could say that the dossier was somewhat boring. I went through it a little bit and it was, it was okay, but it was nothing like mind blowing in there. Yeah, our mainstream media lacks a lot of confidence from the American people. And there's current polling out there that came out like a couple days ago or even yesterday that says that the people trust the mainstream media less than they ever have in the past. And that's sad. And it's mainly not because the American people are just losing confidence in it. They're losing confidence for a reason. Because mainstream media picks and chooses what they want to tell you. They spin it in a certain way that their donors, or not their donors, but they're, the people that are advertisers, they want them to push something in a specific way. Now, apply that to the Vance dossier. The federal government and the subsequently news media don't want you to see it. Not because it isn't authentic, not because it isn't newsworthy. It's because they ultimately want to decide what you should and should not see and read. The FBI and the federal government now has successfully enlisted the mainstream news media into being some kind of adjunct national security agency that is the major threat to our democracy, not some foreign government hijinks. which I agree with him there. And also this whole thing with Israel has really kind of opened our eyes, and not only here but in the UK as well, which I try to keep my tabs on because my husband's British and his whole family's in England. So both countries are important to me because of that, and I want to make sure that both countries aren't going in the wrong direction, and they kind of both are, because they're kind of in lockstep with each other, where they want to control the flow of information and limit your freedom of speech about Israel, which is weird, because I can criticize America all day, every day, and nothing will happen to me. But if I criticize Israel, I mean, it's not illegal right now, but I think they want to make it illegal, which is gross and weird. I was visited by the FBI. I don't feel intimidated or silenced, especially because my editor has expressed this numerous times over decades, but I do feel a little wary, asking myself how deep they looked into my background, my taxes, etc. And the message is indeed chilling, even if it's laughable at the same time. So I'm not going to stop reporting on documents. This was edited by William M. Arkin. I'm not going to stop reporting on documents that are in the public interest, wherever they come from. Please subscribe and make this work possible. And I agree. You should subscribe to Ken Klippenstein. He does wonderful reporting. He's a great reporter. And I can't recommend him more. And I am a paid subscriber. He isn't who I am, so he's not paying me. I pay to access his work, which I think is important. Well, that's it. So thanks for watching. Subscribe.